TechEDTV. Today you're going to learn something about Mac 49, a company that's in San Francisco, assists entrepreneurs within the corporations. So you can be an entrepreneur, so you can start your own business, your own startup, or maybe a new division for your corporation from the inside. Dave Blakely from his headquarters in San Francisco. We're going to call him right now. Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing just great, Edwin. It's good to be here.
Great to see you again. So, look, I mean, you're an engineer, so your background is actually in engineering. You went to Berkeley. How was your time in electrical engineering and then mechanical engineering? How's that experience for you?
Well, the whole experience was great. You know, the engineering was no surprise to me or to any of my friends. I grew up, I like tinkering with things. I studied physics and math. I have to say, Edwin, that when you talk about the experience, what was really the experience was entering UC Berkeley in 1978 and living in student co-op and learning a certain tolerance and breadth of perspective from living day to day with everything from, ROTC scholarship kids to anarchists to communists. It was an amazing time to be going to school at Berkeley.
So, but that's actually for the social side of the story. But how was about in terms of this evolution to computer science? I think that you kind of live there, from the classroom, when computer engineering was actually, I don't even think existed back then.
Computer science certainly existed as a major, but I will be eternally grateful to my advisor, whose name was David Auslander. I studied electrical engineering and physics as an undergrad and mechanical engineering as a grad student. And my graduate advisor, David Auslander, made sure that everyone in his program got familiar with microprocessors and microcontrollers because he knew, almost intuitively that any significant electromechanical system was going to have some sort of embedded controller, be it a medical instrument or a consumer product. And so to graduate and get a master's degree under David Auslander, you had to have a working knowledge of tools like C language programming, and you had to have a working knowledge of how to control a complex electromechanical system with an embedded controller. And I will tell you, David Auslander's prescience has paid off for me year after year, decade after decade in my career.
Yeah, I think you learn the real core of how everything had to work from the ground up. So that's a great foundation for what it came next, which is basically you became an entrepreneur. You're part of different boards. And I look at your LinkedIn and I look at the board that you're part of a board member for Utopia. What's exactly that caught my eye? I was like, what's Utopia exactly?
Sure. I want to tell you about Utopia, but the first thing I want to say is, we're going to get to Mach 49, which is my full-time role. Even when I'm working 60 hours at Mach 49, I still find a little bit of time for my nonprofit activities, and I really want to urge, particularly during these times, which are so tough for so many people, I really want to urge all of your listeners to find something that they can do, even beyond contributing money, or lending their skills to tutoring high school kids or volunteering in some way for some kind of charitable organization. So Utopia, which online is utopia.do, utopia.David Oscar, is an urban innovation lab. And it was started by a man named Jonathan Hirsch. I'm on their board. And the premise behind Utopia is that slums all over the world are growing very rapidly, particularly as people flood in from rural areas for jobs in the cities, often occasional work like construction work or odd jobs. And second, slums are functional communities. Slums are remarkable communities and the scarcity inside slums breeds all kinds of remarkable innovation. So the mission of Utopia is to create urban innovation labs where people in emerging cities, particularly slum dwellers, can become entrepreneurs and can have a platform to build new businesses, to improve anything from healthcare to energy to education inside slums.
Wow, and then actually, like the reason why I brought that up is because I kind of like have an intuition that you love innovation from all perspective, from even from your volunteering work, and now for Mac 49, which is where we're here. Is like the main thing for Mac 49 is that it's a growth incubator for global business. So can you elaborate, because it kind of connects with the slum, but now you're moving into a corporation with a lot of capital.
Sure, sure. So Mach 49 and Mach 49 were a global incubator, and we help huge global 1,000 clients really to do three things. The main thing that we do, and really the flagship output from Mach 49, is we help global 1,000 companies to create and build and launch new ventures from within. All right. In time, we also help Global 1000 companies to create new incubators, to create sustained and enduring cultures of innovation and pipelines of innovation. And finally, we help large corporations to create corporate venture capital funds, to
Okay.
build those entities intelligently, and to make good decisions on where to invest. So we call those two offers disruption inside out, DIO, and disrupting outside in.
So the disrupting inside out and disruption inside in is something required for nowadays corporation, because I think like usually some corporation may feel a little bit like condescending. They feel that they already made it, and then by this lack of innovation, someone can come and disrupts their business and makes basically something that it will be changing. So in that regard, your business was actually created through with like an startup, like with venture funding. Can you tell us how Mac 49 was created with all? It was like a startup, or how did it work?
Sure. So I'll tell you about how Mach 49 was created, but the first thing I'll say is, unlike our clients, which require effectively venture funding, we have a few startup clients, and they actually have venture funding. The entities created by large companies also require venture funding. We never allowed ourselves to take venture funding. Okay, we in a business like an incubator, we were able to bootstrap, and that's because we had a very experienced team of innovators. We had all kinds of people with backgrounds that varied from venture capital to startup entrepreneurship to big company new product introduction. So we were able to hit the ground running and start to see revenues almost immediately. But the main thing I want to say about the history and building an incubator like Mach 49 is this: the big message to the world, Edwin, was methods and tools that everyone in the world, every business in the world is focused on, which come from venture capital and from unicorn style entrepreneurship, right? Methods like how to put together a hot startup, startup like people, how you like agile and lean and design thinking to race forward with a new product or a new service and disrupt existing markets, okay? All these methods that are used very successfully by the Ubers and the Airbnbs and the Teslas and so on. Every one of these methods can be applied inside large corporations. Every one of these methods can be applied to if you enable a carefully selected team of intrapreneurs, not entrepreneurs, but intrapreneurs, to create, build, and launch a new venture from within.
Wow, and tell me a little bit about that process. How do you select the how do you select the personnel that wants to be part of this? Is the corporation that takes the lead role? You help the corporation identify that personnel. How does it operate when, let's say I am XYZ Inc. and I want to hire you to create an incubator, or want to use you as part of the incubation process? How does that work?
You're asking me exactly the right question about the team, because that's where it all starts. Look, if you talk to a venture capitalist, remember, we're building our methods based on well-established successes in venture capital and in startup entrepreneurship. If you ask any venture capitalist where they start, it's with the team, right? a good team, a team that can execute and work well together, is just table stakes even to get in the door for investment. And then people start to worry about things like the dynamics of your market and what problem you're trying to solve and so on. So we put excruciating care into choosing exactly the right team of people. We take attributes that are in predicting profile, or called a predictive index, extremely good profiling tool to understand how to put together a good entrepreneurial team. We're looking for a CEO type person who would be a team lead, who's the keeper of the product vision, that is willing to just break down doors, and bust through walls in order to move the initiative forward.
Right.
We're looking for a product person who thinks about the art of the possible. We're looking for a marketing person who thinks about how to communicate the benefits of the vision to many different audiences. And then we're looking for multiple other people. In some cases, even a company with 40, 80,000 people can't find the right individuals. So in some cases, what we do is we hire them from the outside. We hire experienced startup entrepreneurs, maybe someone who's had an exit recently, to join the team. But
Wow.
big thing I want to say is we put excruciating care, and we have extended discussions on assembling what is typically a 5 to 6 person entrepreneurial team to create a new line of business for a big global 1,000.
Wow. So in a way, it's like I think people have heard of Boeing Skunk Works, where they build some of the new tech, but what you have is a Mac 49. It's like a Skunk Works for any entrepreneurship venture corporation that would like to basically move their employees forward and wants to create maybe what usually happens. Does become divisions, or you launch it like a separate startup?
So there are a variety of things that happen. One of the first decisions that companies need to make is spin in versus spin out. Okay, and within spin in or spin out, there are a lot of gradations, as you can imagine, in terms of how much support the startup gets from the parent company. No matter what happens structurally, and I'll give you some examples, but no matter what happens structurally, it's important that these entities always have the feel and the culture of a startup, all right? So, for example, Stanley Black & Decker has a couple of very successful internal new ventures that we help them launch. One of them is called Surehand, and it helps with industrial testing. And the other is called Dado, D-A-D-O, and it helps with construction. Now, these are both wholly owned subsidiaries, but if you walk into Dado, which is in WeWork in Oakland, you would swear you were working with a VC-funded completely startup, okay? Because independent of the financial structure, Stanley Black & Decker correctly created this culture that is very startup-like and that attracts startup-style entrepreneurs, okay? Even more surprising was when German energy giant RWE spun off and ended up taking a minority equity interest in one of the companies we helped them create, which is called Pair.ai, which uses artificial intelligence to inform small and medium-sized businesses about energy decisions. And because they were a spin-off, they were actually acquired recently by Constellation Energy.
Wow. So there you have several success stories where applying the venture capital mindset to let's say like an old-fashioned organization brings the value of the growth of a venture capital startup type of unicorn-like venture, and the financial backing from a large corporation like a Stanley or any other corporation that's one of your customers. And that comes back to the next question, which is basically what's the advice to those corporations that haven't heard from you, and then like they might be a little bit actually they see somebody coming up with new ideas more like a threat, instead of seeing like, okay, that's actually a potential benefit. What would you tell them today as part of your pitch, so they can basically connect with Mac 49 and start one of these processes?
Sure. So let's drill into something that you said just a minute ago, Edwin. You talked about the VC mindset. We want a new venture board, like a board of directors within the mothership, to have a VC mindset. We want them to create a portfolio of experiments. We want them to provide the right level of support and active involvement with the venture. We want the venture team itself to have a startup mindset, right? We want to have these people who are previously full-time members of a huge organization to shift over, and we teach them the startup mindset in a very carefully curated 12-week program. If I were to offer one piece of advice to your listeners, to your executives and your leaders listening to this, it's to give teams the freedom to innovate from the bottom up. Okay, you're absolutely right, Edwin. Too many organizations see this sort of innovation as a threat. They see new ventures created inside as cannibalizing existing businesses, and current business line managers fight against innovation sometimes.
So sometimes people get fired, you know? Sometimes some people get fired. Yeah. Yeah.
It can absolutely happen. There's sort of a corporate insecurity where people kind of demean the organization, and they sort of say, well, no, the only thing we're good at is day-to-day operational stuff. We're going to have to go outside for innovation. I urge your listeners to completely reject that line of thinking, all right? This whole line of thinking, which has some merit, that innovation has to come from the top now, right? That the CEO and the C-level executives need to do some sort of broad-scale transformation across the entire organization, changing everything from hiring strategy to reporting structure in order to foster innovation based on successful case studies from innovative organizations. It sounds good. That kind of tops down. It's called the deductive style of thinking, where you start with high-level principles, then you push them down. We say, no, don't do that. Liberate a series of experiments or pilots from the bottom up, okay, where you can create a portfolio of experiments. Classic, good investment practice, right?
Right.
Venture investment practice. Create a portfolio of diverse experiments, stage gate them really aggressively, don't allow them to continue on indefinitely, but make sure that each one of them is making progress, and see your way clear to create a culture in which people can engage in the kind of skunk works that you mentioned a little earlier. People can create groups of highly motivated people to conduct experiments. And the last thing I'll say, Edwin, is corporations should be spending 95% of their resources on maintaining and incrementally improving their current product lines, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I'm talking here about that critical 5 to 10% of your resources that are going to be at a completely different place on the risk-reward curve, and it will propel you forward into entirely new domains and potentially provide a really remarkable step function to your revenues and your retained earnings.
And two questions I'm pretty sure our audience will think. It's like, okay, what's the cost of that? And the number two will be like, how much time do they spend? Do they spend like a week? Is it like 12 weeks that they are out of the job, just working just on this? Or are you sending them to a special location outside their office where they work on this project? Or is it just 12 weeks that they kind of like do it like a master's program where they do it overnight, or they do it like Friday to Sunday? How does it work structurally?
I'm so glad you asked that. I have been in new venture creation and innovation for 30 years, and I will tell you this: nothing significant happens, nothing, when people work on it part-time, all right? You want to do something substantial, you commit to 12 weeks, you pull people physically out of their environment, and you pop them down in some separate physical space. Right now, everybody's working from
Right,
home. So
right. Assuming that we're back to normal, yeah.
Yep, but assuming we're back to normal, and we will be, let's all stay optimistic on that. Typically, what our clients do is They bring their team to our incubator in Redwood City, to our incubator in Singapore, to our incubator
Got
in
it.
London, to our incubator in Boston. Okay,
Uh-huh.
disruptive advance happens only when people sit together. They wake up in the morning. They spend all day thinking, all right, how am I going to provide better services for active elderly? Okay, how am I going to improve the current state of field programmable gate arrays? Whatever the heck it is. Okay?
Right.
Disruptive advance happens only when people get up in the morning, think about those challenges all day in a carefully curated process, and go home and go to bed. All right, that is the startup mentality, and that is the only way I've ever seen disruptive innovation advance. I regret programs where I worked with clients and allowed them to sort of meander along part-time, because we never got innovation of the quality that happens if you commit full-time. It's a big commitment, but it is an essential commitment at a time when an unprecedented number of big businesses are being disrupted very, very quickly by small incumbents. And just to quickly answer your question, this doesn't happen in a week. This doesn't happen in 2 weeks. Okay, you need a full 12-week, very fast-paced program to come up with customer insights, to come up with a product vision and a picture for a minimum viable product, and to work through all the business viability issues, from business model to operating plan, that are required to create a mature and prototyped line of business ready for launch in 12 weeks. But it shouldn't take longer than 12 weeks. Here again, we can look to startups for inspiration here, Edwin. It does not take a startup, a team of people working full-time, 2 years,
Right.
the way it does in some corporations, just to come up with the basic challenge statement of what we need to do.
And how about the cost? Is like something that you can reveal to us, or every organization has a different structure?
Well, we structure differently for every organization. So I'm hesitant to talk about specific costs, but I will tell you that we are a lot less expensive than most of the big name business consultants that you've seen out there. We're in most cases, we're less expensive at three than a lot of these big name business consultancies.
And I'm pretty sure you're less expensive not only in the cost to do it, but in the cost of not doing it, which probably much higher. Like sometimes the corporation tries to do it themselves, and they probably fail and spend millions of dollars, and they have teams of 20, 30 people working 2 years in something that they just ultimately end up canning through and wasting their time. So Dave, we're running out of time right now, and I want to thank you very much for your time. It's been great. Dave is an expert. He's in the Valley, and obviously he has done a lot of this work himself, and he's part of the team. He's a vice president for Mac 49. And so any last words to our audience, and maybe we can put your link here below so they can reach you out if there's any corporation interested in your services.
Please reach out to me if this sounds interesting to you. I think what I'd like to close with, Edwin, is by being clear. Look, I've been working in new product introduction and new venture creation now for 30 years. I've never worked with any organization in any part of the world, in any industry, where we couldn't come up with exciting and fresh and disruptive new visions. Okay. This is what the activities I'm talking about are not some sort of innate talents. That's a myth created by the creative consultants. Okay, these are skills, not innate talents. And we would love the chance to work with really any of your listeners to help them understand how we can help them learn to create and build and launch new ventures from within.
We'll have to bring you back, Dave, because it's been very interesting. I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of people that will want to have and I will reach out to about your services to some people I know that they will benefit from this. And thanks again for watching. You're watching TechEDTV. Thank you, Dave.
It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.